The air felt thick, stale with anticipation. Mel Gibson sat rigid in the center chair. His hands clenched tight on the armrests, twitched just slightly. He hadn't said much yet, just nods, forced smiles, tension already bleeding through the corners of his mouth. To his left, Joy Behar leaned in. Mel, let's talk about the past. Her tone was light, even casual, but the words dropped like glass. The live audience didn't clap. They knew better. Mel's jaw twitched. Be specific, he said calmly. Whoopi turned her gaze away, letting Joy steer this one at least for now. Joy chuckled. I mean the past decade, the controversies, the anger, the everything. You know what I'm talking about. Mel gave a slow, deliberate exhale. I'm here to talk about my work, not to raid graves. Joy didn't blink. But Mel, how can you expect people to support your work if you haven't really taken accountability? A murmur ran through the crowd. Mel's fingers tapped the armrest. Once, twice, accountability, he echoed. You want a press tour apology? Or the real kind? Joy smiled sweetly. The real kind, but on live TV, with all of us watching. A laugh rose from the audience, nervous, tight. Mel's eyes flashed. That's not how redemption works. Sunny Hostin shifted uncomfortably. In her seat, Sarah Haynes looked ready to intervene, but no one moved. The tension was electric now, like someone had struck a match but refused to blow it out. Joy leaned back, arms crossed. So you're saying you've moved on, that the public just has to catch up? No, Mel said, voice dropping lower. I'm saying I've done the work, and I don't need your blessing. Joy fired back instantly. It's not my blessing that matters, it's the public's. Mel turned toward her, slow and deliberate. You think the public put me on trial? You did. People like you. Smug, sanctimonious, performative. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Whoopi sat up straighter. Okay, but Mel didn't stop. You don't want change. You want blood. The studio went dead silent. Joy didn't flinch. I want honesty. You want a spectacle. Mel barked. And you got one. Is this what you wanted? Me angry? Me breaking down on air? The Joy ratings plan? Someone in the back shouted, whoa. Applause erupted, half stunned, half supportive. Joy raised her eyebrows. You think I need ratings from you? Mel stood. The audience gasped again. Sarah put a hand out, unsure whether to calm him or block him. Mel didn't move toward her. He just looked at Joy. You don't interview. You prosecute. Joy stood up too. And you don't answer. You deflect, because your questions are traps, he snapped. They're not built for answers, just outrage. The tension was unbearable. You could feel it in the backs of people's throats. The air had shifted. Joy's face, now visibly flushed, twisted slightly, whether from anger or pressure. It wasn't clear. Whoopi finally steps in. All right, we gonna take a prayer. Mel turned away, slowly pacing behind his chair. But he wasn't leaving. Not yet. He was gathering himself, calculating. Joy still standing. Sit softly. You want redemption? Then own what you did. He stopped, turned back, and said, I've owned it. You just didn't like how quiet it was. That line hit like a bullet. The room froze. Joy blinked. Whoopi's eyes widened. Sunny covered her mouth. Sarah muttered, oh, my God. And the crowd, no applause, no gasp, just silence. Mel returned to his chair, sat down, folded his arms. The cameras kept rolling, and round two was just seconds away. The tension didn't just hang in the air anymore, it cracked. The second Mel Gibson leaned forward, eyes locked on Joy Behar like a soldier who'd been pushed one command too far. Everyone on the view stage knew the conversation had officially stepped past the line of no return. But Joy, she smiled like she owned the moment. Mel, she said, turning to face him fully, you've played war heroes, revolutionaries, even a literal messiah. But when it comes to your own controversies, you go silent. Why is that? No hesitation, no apology in her tone. She was pressing buttons like she was trying to trigger something. Mel slowly exhaled through his nose. His jaw tensed, hands clasped tightly in his lap. I've answered that for years, he said, voice controlled. Low. I've taken the hits. Joy, I've kept my head down. What do you want? Blood? Maybe some accountability? She snapped back. A full room of women here today, and not one of them forgot the tapes. Mel. A sudden wave of murmurs swirled through the audience. Whoopi leaned slightly forward, I starting between them like a referee. Joy wasn't backing off. If anything, she leaned in harder. You say you've changed, but change requires reflection. You storm out of interviews, threaten reporters, Blame everyone but yourself. Sounds like the old Mel's still driving the bus. Mel's eyes narrowed. He didn't blink. A second passed, then another. And then, I came here to talk, he said slowly, not be tried by a smug, third-rate prosecutor in red glasses. A gasp hit the crowd like a wave. Joy's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me, you heard me. Now it was Anna Navarro whispering. Oh no, under her breath. Even Sarah looked stunned. Joy straightened up, clutching her note cards like they were evidence. Well, I guess the real Mel just stood up, she said coolly. Took you 30 minutes longer than usual. But Mel wasn't moving on. He was shifting in his chair, restless. That old fury, the one tabloids used to write about, it was bubbling right there under his skin. You don't want a conversation, Joy. You want a spectacle, Mel said, louder. Now, well, congratulations, you've got one. The audience was silent, but no clapping, no cheering, just silence. Whoopi finally leaned in. Guys, let's take a breath, she began. No, Mel cut in. I let this slide for too long. I'm not here to be paraded around like some punching bag for daytime ratings. Joy smiled coldly. You think this is about ratings? Mel, your public breakdowns are the ratings. And that was it. Mel pushed his chair back. The scraping sound echoed. The crew behind the cameras stood frozen. One even reached for his earpiece. You want fire? Mel said, standing up, eyes boring into Joy's. You got it. Go ahead. Walk out. Joy dared him. Prove every headline right. But Mel didn't move. Not yet. Instead, he leaned over the table just slightly. You want to play games with people's pain? He growled. You picked the wrong guy. Joy's smile dropped. Finally, it was the first flicker of fear or maybe realization that she'd crossed her line even she hadn't expected to. But just as quickly, she recovered. Sit down, Mel, or leave, but stop pretending to be the victim. Mel stared at her. Whoopi's voice cut through the tension like a lifeline. Enough, she said. Both of you, we're done with this part of the segment. But Mel had locked in. He didn't even glance at Whoopi. He just pointed at Joy. You're a coward hiding behind cue cards. And then he turned and walked off the set. Gasps, audience murmurs. A producer muttered. He's actually leaving. Joy sat still, eyes wide, lips pressed into a tight line. The rest of the panel, frozen, but Mel didn't look back. Not once, not even when Whoopi called after him, not even when a stagehand rushed toward the curtain. He vanished behind the wings like a shadow breaking off from its source. The room stayed frozen, and then, like the snap of a rubber band, the audience started buzzing. Anna muttered. We lost him. Sarah sat back, stunned. That was real. Joy didn't speak, not for a full 10 seconds. Then finally, she looked straight at the camera, eyes glassy, but voice steady. Well, she said, there you have it, Mel Gibson. Ladies and gentlemen, still a storm in search of a calm. But her hands trembled, and deep beneath the table hidden from the cameras, she clenched her fists until her knuckles turned white. Because no one had ever walked of her show like that before. No one had ever taken the power away from her live, on air, and walked out holding it. Joy Behar sat silent, staring down at the cue cards in her hands, like they were written in another language. The air in the studio was electric shocked, stiff, fraying. Mel Gibson was gone from the seat, gone from the stage, gone from the view, but he'd left something behind. A crater. Whoopi cleared her throat first. Okay, she said, trying to steady the room with her voice. We'll be right back after the break. Don't. Joy interrupted, her voice sharp and sudden. Everyone turned, even the crew. No break, she said. Eyes locked on the cameras now. We're finishing this, right here, right now. Anna raised her eyebrows. You sure? Joy looked at her sewer hosts like soldiers who had just been shelled. I'm not letting him walk out of here thinking he controlled this table. Sarah blinked. Joy. He's gone. Joy stood up. Then bring him back. A few gasps in the audience. Whoopi's voice dropped. Joy. You can't just. I said bring him back. She turned to the stage crew, pointing toward the wings. I want him back on this stage, now. And somehow he returned. Mel Gibson didn't re-enter with a smirk, or with swagger. He came back like a fuse, still burning, silent, controlled, dangerous. A production assistant escorted him gently to his seat, murmuring something in his ear. But Mel didn't respond. He just sat down. The chair creaked as he leaned back, arms folded, jaw locked. Joy turned toward him without missing a beat. "Thank you for coming back," she said coldly. "I wasn't done." Mel let out a small, humorless laugh. "No, you never are." That struck something. Anna flinched. Sarah glanced at the producer off stage, who held up a hand, signaling to let it riot. Joy leaned in again. "You think walking off makes you noble? That's what cowards do, Mel. They run when the questions get hard." Mel sat still. His eyes didn't blink. "You want to talk about cowardice?" he said, his voice quiet now. "Let's talk about hiding behind applause, signs, and commercial breaks." "You mean accountability?" Joy shot back. "We've built this platform to confront people like you, to show women and victims they have a voice." Mel's fist cold in his lap. "I've spent years apologizing," he said. "But you don't care. You want a lie fill-in." "No, we want a truth," Joy said, not rehearsed PR lines. The audience watched in dead silence, afraid to even shift in their seats. "Truth." Mel leaned forward now, elbows on the table. "Here's the truth. People like you need men like me to be monsters. Because if I'm a monster, you're a hero. You don't want growth. You want headlines." Joy stared, then she laughed. "You really think this is about you?" she said. "No one's afraid of Mel Gibson anymore. You are not dangerous, you are dated." Mel's expression didn't change, but his silence was louder than any outburst. "Joy," Whoopi finally interrupted, her tone firmer now. "Let's step back. This is getting personal." Joy didn't look away from Mel. "It is personal. To every woman watching this show who's been silenced, frightened, dismissed. This man represents all of it." And Mel finally leaned forward again, voice like a whisper forged in steel. "Then say it, Joy. See what you really want to say." Joy met his stare. "I think you're still the man on that tape," she said slowly, "and nothing's changed. But your haircut." Boom. Even Whoopi winced. Mel took a breath. The cameras caught at the flex of his jaw, a slight switch in his tempo, and then he smiled, but not kindly. "You know what I think," he said, voice low and cutting. "You hide your rage behind activism. You think if you scream loud enough, people won't notice the venom underneath." Joy's breath caught in her throat. Mel leaned back, his smile gone. "I came here to talk. You came here to destroy. That's not journalism. That's a vendetta." Joy was silent, and for the first time truly the table fell still. Whoopi gave a single nod to the stage manager. "Cut to break," she said, but the manager shook his head. "We're live. No escape. Not this time." The music didn't play, the lights didn't shift, the audience did quiet until a single clap, then another, and suddenly the room erupted, not in applause for anyone in particular, but in shock, in disbelief, in the pure, raw tension of a moment so unscripted that no one knew what to do but react. Joy's voice returned, but quieter now. "This isn't over," she said. Mel nodded once. "No," he said, "it's just beginning. The table is scorched, not by fire, but by tension." Joy Behar and Mel Gibson sit across from each other, not as host and guest, but as two enemies in a silent war. The audience is quiet. Too quiet. No applause signs, no laughs, no relief, just the ticking of the studio clock, and the burning silence between every word. "Let me ask you one thing," Joy says, slowly, surgically. "One question before you go." Mel shifts, but doesn't break eye contact. "Go ahead." Joy sits down her cue cards. "Do you actually believe you're misunderstood? Or do you just hate being reminded of who you really are?" Mel exhales through his nose, a slow burn. "I think," he replies, "that I've made peace with my demons. But you invite yours on stage." Whoopi flinches. Sarah leans forward. Anna mutters, "Jesus Christ," under her breath. Joy doesn't blink. That's rich coming from a man who called his ex-girlfriend the devil on voicemail. Mel stares. "You don't know the full story," he says. Joy leans in, voice rising. "No, but the world heard it. You screamed at her, threatened her, and now you sit here what? Hoping we forget, hoping time erases the tape." Mel's face tightens. "I came here to talk about my new film," he says. "You came here to relive every headline from 2010 like it's a courtroom. This is a courtroom," Joy barks. "Every woman watching at home is the jury, and I promise you enough." Mel's voice finally breaks. Not a scream, a roar. Audience stunned. Cameras freeze. Whoopi's hand saps a table. "Hey, enough. Both of you." Mel's breathing hard now. So is Joy. Whoopi stands up. "This isn't The Exorcist. We don't need head spinning. On this table, we're live. There are lines into a both 10 miles past them. Joy glares at her. Don't you dare, I said enough. Who be cunts back? I'm not here to babysit echoes. A beat, then another. Anna finally speaks. You know what this is, she says. This isn't a talk show anymore. It's a public execution. Everyone turns. Joy, you are not wrong to hold him accountable, Anna says. But we can't torch every guest and call it justice. And Mel, she turns to him. You don't get to storm in Hugh acting like the victim when your past still drips with blood. Silence again, like a gunshot in a cathedral. Mel's jaw works, Joy's knuckles whiten. Sarah finally whispers, maybe we should end this. But Mel suddenly turns directly to the camera. To America. To the audience he once lost. If you want to hate me, he says. I earned it. But if I'm trying to grow, trying to make peace, and you still want to crucify me, what's left? What do you want? Flood? Apologies aren't enough anymore. They want ashes. He stands. Fine, he says. Here's my last apology. Joy rolls her eyes, but Mel doesn't look at her. He keeps staring at the camera. I'm sorry I came on this show. Gasps. Audience reacting now. He points to Joy. I'm sorry I thought you wanted a conversation instead of a confrontation. I'm sorry I believed there was still room for redemption in a world addicted to outrage. Joy stands now too. You don't get the last word. Mel turns to her slow, deliberate. I already had it, he says. Then he walks past Hoopy, past the table, past the audience. No music. No applause. Just the sound of footsteps fading behind the curtains. Joy looks to the audience, scanning, daring them to cheer. They don't, not for her. Not for him. Just silence. And somewhere in that silence a truth neither side wanted to admit. They both lost.